I kind of look at whatever your main message is the center of a wheel, and that we call the foundational narrative. And then all of the spokes that come out of that wheel are entry points for potential and current audiences to interact with the brand or the film.
Welcome to Celebrity Focus Insiders with your host, Rick Backrack.
Jonny Zeller is a film director, he's an entrepreneur, and he's a story-verse architect. He's worked with some of the biggest brands around the globe, including Adidas, BMW, MasterCard, Google, AT&T, and he's also shot world-class personalities like Paris Hilton, Mandy Moore, and Carrie Underwood. He's won lots of awards with his work, including a Clio, American Advertising Award, Webby's, Telly's, and the Hermes Honors. And the feature film Deadly Illusions reached #1 globally on Netflix. Jonny was the second unit director. Jonny, welcome to the show today. Tell us, what is a storyverse architect?
Well, thanks for having me. A storyverse architect, in my mind, is how to describe being a creative that goes beyond just directing or writing or art direction. Storyverse architect is about creating a story universe, a story ecosystem that audiences can get excited about. And we really try to create entry points. So if you're dealing with a brand and maybe you're selling a truck or whatever, your audience may not care about the truck originally, but if we create entry points in a story-driven world, they might care about the characters that drive that truck and maybe could get converted to liking a truck. On a feature film or a television series, it's about building a story world with characters and locations and all sorts of different ideas that come together and create a fantastical universe that we get to lose ourselves and participate in. So I kind of thought about the idea of it because it feels more comprehensive than just being a director or just being a producer or a writer, because we do so many things. I get to work on a lot of different projects and create worlds that audiences get excited to be a part of.
So that really is about connecting all the dots. I've heard you refer to your work as cinematic transmedia and multi-platform storytelling. What's that, and why is it important for brands? Because I know we're not just doing one thing these days. There's lots of different touch points.
Yep. So I think that transmedia multi-platform storytelling could be distilled down simply to just a new perspective on how to address the sales funnel and the customer's journey. So everybody's familiar now with, okay, well, we create a commercial and then we have an Instagram video and we have a TikTok and Facebook posts and things like that. And oftentimes we see that one department goes and shoots the commercial and then a different department handles the photography and then somebody does the experiential. And although they're similar in the campaign, sometimes they can be pretty disconnected. And so I think really stepping back and looking at the entire system from the customer journey and the sales funnel all at one time, we can be a lot more efficient with how we create content and we can build a more kind of cohesive message. Like you wouldn't put the same content on a broadcast spot that you would put in a newsletter or on Twitter. And so it's important to talk to the audience the way that they expect and want to be talked to, depending on which platform they're on. And so to me, it's really about planning and kind of going back to the storyverse architect, creating an ecosystem where we know ahead of time that we have to create all of these different assets to touch points, entry points for our audience to come into our world, depending on what platform they're on. And so I kind of look at whatever your main message is the center of a wheel. And that we call the foundational narrative. And then all of the spokes that come out of that wheel are entry points for potential and current audiences to interact with the brand or the film. So that foundational narrative can be anything. It can be a PR stunt. It could be a live event. It could be a film. It could be a commercial. There's lots of different ways. And then kind of reverse engineer that and say, okay, we know that audiences are going to doom scroll through TikTok and through Instagram. So we need to create a bunch of content that is fast and cheap and easy. But that should also connect to the broadcast spot or the pre-roll ad that we're going to make that is polished and fancy. They probably don't have the same talent. They probably don't have the same crew, but they should have the same soul, the same kind of through line. Same with a newsletter, which is kind of coming back right now. And certainly the rest of the social media platforms, influencer engagements, live activations, and kind of creating it so that they all work together. I really believe that we should get the audience, it should be more of a conversation rather than a monologue. So how can we create a world where the audience comes in on entry point, whatever, they come in on Twitter. How can we get them to migrate to TikTok or Instagram or sign up for a newsletter or convert them to the website where we make a sale or, sell a service? So it's really getting them to migrate platforms, getting them to participate in the story, because once they take even a little bit of ownership, they're in. There's so much more in than if they feel like they're being sold. And I think, it's no secret that Gen Z, the younger generation, doesn't want to be sold even more than we did. And so it has to be more authentic. It has to be more of a conversation and less of a sales pitch. And the beauty of it is that because you have so many entry points, because you have so much content, so many ways to speak to the audience, you don't have to hammer home features and benefits every time and logos every time, because if you didn't catch them here, you might catch them here. And so it's almost like we're also diversifying our portfolio of the campaign and allowing us to be more authentic, have a better conversation with the audience.
You clearly moved well beyond, I'm just a director, and you're essential to the marketing, to the strategy behind the marketing. Clearly, that's the case. How did you get started in the business? Where'd you learn? Where'd you earn your chops? And who maybe were your influences?
Well, I once long ago was a snowboarder and chasing the professional snowboard dream. And so me and my brother and all of my best friends growing up, we'd pass the camera back and forth as we were skating and snowboarding, shooting videos and creating all sorts of stupid content around each other. And as we progressed, the jumps got bigger, the rails got longer, the injuries became more prominent. And I ended up gravitating towards wanting to be behind the camera because I was getting hurt a lot. And that seemed like a longer career path. And so that was kind of like the real early start of like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, kind of graduated up from there and went to studied entrepreneurship and business first, and then went over to film school and then kind of got out into the world. I'm super lucky to have really great mentors throughout my life, and some of which were, cinematographers in the film space. Some were on the business side of things. And so I'm just really, really thankful and forever in debt to those people that took a shot and said, you know what, I'm going to spend my time helping you and trying to teach you. So
that's great. I've got so many more questions. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a few, and we've got lots more questions and a bit more time with Jonny Zeller.
Hey, these are my shoes, and here's the rest of me. home soon. You're in the arms of the angels.
It's about not just the fundraising, but getting people to understand how important North Pond is to Lincoln Park, to Chicago, to our natural areas, but also to us as human beings, to our need for connecting to nature.
Jonny, welcome back. Lots more questions. You've worked with a lot of different celebrities. What are you looking for from talent when you're doing celebrity shoots or celebrity activations in general? What are you looking for from the talent? And I guess a second question along the same lines, what do you think makes a great spokesperson for a brand?
Sure. I think when I'm working with talent, subtlety feels important. It's when you're on in front of the camera. There's big lights. There's a lot of crew. I mean, it's a kind of even for pros. I've heard some of the even really prominent veteran actors say, I still get a little nervous when I step in front of the camera every time, and that little adrenaline rush and that little butterflies in my stomach, kind of thrust me into the performance. When it's a brand, it's easy to get stuck on a script and it's easy to kind of overdo it. And sometimes when we have, I mean, even on the film side, it sounds good in my head. It looks great on paper. And when we get in front of the camera, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Sometimes we have to tweak a line or we have to adjust the position. So all that being said, I think that if we can move past those little challenges and focus on dialing it down so it feels more subtle and authentic, that's really where I try to get the talent. Most of the time, they're obviously familiar with the brand because they've been hired to do this thing, but it's maybe not something that they use in their normal life, and it's an ad, so we're selling stuff. So I try to dial that back and just say, like we don't have to be crazy here. Let's talk to the audience. Let's treat them like people. They're not stupid, so let's not act that way. And so just try to keep it authentic and simple and true to the voice of the brand, but also true to the voice of the talent. Because if you stray too far away from either one of those, it's going to miss.
And that really is that's a great point. There's a very delicate mix. It's a fine line and a balance, and you can't go too far one way or the other. How about favorite campaigns? Geez, you've done so much work for so many great brands, and as I said, you've done a lot of celebrity work. Any favorite campaigns that you've worked on throughout the years? Tell us about some of those.
Well, one of my favorites, because of many different things, but one of my favorites is this. It's a brand called Dialpad, and they make office solutions. They're a really cool tech brand up in the Valley, Silicon Valley. And when we started working with their agency, Column 5, on building out this kind of campaign and series, the brand side said, look, we don't need to sell features and benefits here. We can talk about them, but what we really want to do is we want to tell a story. We want to create characters, and we want to make something that's funny. And we'll put the logo at the end, but that's it. I don't want to hear the brand. I don't want to see a logo. Don't spend too much time on the features and benefits of the product. Like let's just tell people about who we are and make something that they'll talk about. And that was so refreshing, because it seems like oftentimes it's easy to get stuck in this idea of, I need my logo on screen. I need them to know that the product does this and it does that. And like that, it just gets to be too salesy at that point. So this was such a fun campaign because we got to be funny. We got to write interesting things, and it was telling a story. So the kind of the creative around it was Dialpad makes AI tools for Office, voice transcriptions, all sorts of really interesting stuff. So they said, all right, well, what if we did AI auditions and we held it like a casting call. And any AI of any kind, any robots of any kind can show up and try to audition to be dial pad, AI robots. And so we had these two comedians, Chris and Jack, who are absolutely hilarious. They were running this audition, and then throughout the day, different robots, different AI would come in and audition to be the dial pad AI. And obviously they all failed. That was the whole joke, is that that's not the kind of AI that you need, or the kind of robots that you need. And we were just dying laughing all day on set. We had incredible actors. It was a great script. And the first cut came back and it was like 10 minutes long. I'm like, okay, well, we can't have a 10-minute long piece here. We have to get it down. And it was a series of 30-second spots. Each one of the interviews got cut into a 30-second spot. And then we did a mashup of all of them. And then we took headshots of all of the candidates, and they built a microsite where the headshots could be posted, and people could go in and they could comment and they could interact with the actors and vote and talk about it. So it went so far beyond just making a 30-second ad. And I just loved that, because they really gave us room to run and to do some creative stuff. So that, I would say, that was one of my favorite campaigns. Otherwise, I mean, I have a lot of favorites. That was just the kind of the first one that came to mind. I have a lot of favorite moments. Those are probably easier to talk about. But we closed down the Las Vegas Strip one time for 3M. And so we had police cars, blocking all of the entrances. And we had a Lamborghini and a BMW and a couple of other cars racing down the strip. And I remember sitting in the camera car, looking around and saying, holy shit, I have the Las Vegas Strip closed down. And there's a Lamborghini drifting around the corner. It was just one of those, like, what? How is this real moments? And then one time when I was doing a campaign with Paris Hilton for her fragrance line, we were on a big green screen, huge crew, tons of people, tons of lights, massive production. And she's just standing out in this green void all alone. And we had gotten a couple of really good takes. And it was feeling like, she's no stranger to the camera, and she's amazing on camera, but she was out there all alone. And so I walked out and, just had a little conversation with her about what we were going to do next. And, she was doing a great job. So I let her know. And it was this super personal moment where she just said, you know what, Jonny, thank you. I needed this. You're the best. And give me a hug. And it was just like everything disappeared. All of the cameras went away. And it was just like, even somebody as popular and famous and good in front of the camera and charismatic, still there's that little moment of, you know what, thanks for telling me I'm doing a good job. That's good to hear. So I love that when you can kind of get past just the public persona with somebody, and they're real people too. So I love her. She's the best. And so a couple of fun moments.
These are great. And you and I could go on for another hour at least. I've got just a couple more things I want to ask. What your work with the brands and future work with brands, what kind of advice can you offer brand leadership, marketing leadership, agency executives from the creative perspective? What would you say to them, and what advice would you offer?
It's no surprise, but I still think story is king. And if we can move past just hammering home features and benefits and try to create a more immersive world that the audiences want to be a part of, I think that's where we're going. I think we're moving towards that. And I think there's more platforms, there's more ways to speak to the audience than ever before. And it doesn't, just because you're activating on more than one platform, doesn't mean that those costs grow in tandem with that. If you can step back and look at the whole ecosystem ahead of time, it's amazing how effective that can be at a really, reasonable cost based on what you're getting. So I think I would say more conversations between departments, more collaboration. I think that brand to brand collaborations are also a really great way to take advantage of another brand's influence and audience in a really cool, interesting way. And then, of course, Web3 is coming, and it's kind of already here, and it's only going to get bigger and better. And that's a whole nother world. But I think that we can't fight against the trends. We can't fight against that stuff. I think we have to sit back and embrace it and say, all right, this stuff's coming. How do we get ahead of it? And how do we turn it into a positive rather than, hey, we don't know what it is, so we're going to be scared and we're going to say, nah, we don't want to deal with it.
So you really represent the intersection between business and the arts. And I want you to talk a little bit about the Creative Coalition, what it is, and why it's so important for all of us to support it.
The Creative Coalition is this wonderful organization that is dedicated to protecting the National Endowment for the Arts. And it's wild, but there's only one lobbyist in DC that is out there, making sure that the National Endowment for the Arts is intact. And those budgets go up and down each year. The Creative Coalition is there to help support that lobbyist and support the community and keeping arts in schools. And I think that it's hard to say that art at some capacity hasn't affected all of us. And we all listen to music, we all watch television, we all go on the internet. And so if we didn't have artists and we didn't have creative and kids didn't know that could be a path, then I don't think that's a very good world. So it's a very wonderful organization. Robert Bronk, the CEO, has done such a great job at pulling together some of the industry's most prominent actors, producers, writers, and beyond. And so it's really a way for everybody to kind of honor the craft and help make sure that the next generation has access to the same better tools and the ability to be creative in their own way.
Jonny, thanks so much for being with me today. This has been great. I hope you'll do it again, because I've got a lot more questions, and I know our viewers will as well. To our viewers, hey, check around the screen somewhere. I don't know where the heck it is. Somewhere there's a button that says subscribe. Please do that. I hope you like these episodes, and I think we'd love to see you tune in every week. So subscribe, check us out, tell your friends, and come back. So we'll see you next week on another episode of Celebrity Focus Insiders. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Celebrity Focus Insiders, connecting famous people with famous brands. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date and check out our past episodes at celebrityfocus.com.